Man, I just think you got to realize there's value in your log data. Just start out there. I mean, if you're sophisticated, maybe you're using it for security stuff, things like that, you're feeling, but there's just so much good stuff in your log data. So much of it you're ignoring. And if you just embrace that you can get a lot of business value out of that stuff, you're already a mile ahead of, the person to the left and right of you. So
I,
that
I
would be my good advice.
I like that. Just appreciating that log data has value is the first step. This is like, oh, it's very positive. It's very warm
I
and fuzzy.
mean, it does. There's like good mana in there. It's like, the magic mana cards that you can play out so you can do other stuff. It's
All right,
great.
we are going to tap into that in just a second. But Nick Falzarano, Director of Information Security over at TE Connectivity, help us out here. Give us some bad advice or a bad idea on how to get value from your log data.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off Tim. I'm going to say focusing more on getting your logs to a destination rather than understanding your logs. We've seen a lot of value in terms of even just from a licensing perspective that I'm sure we'll get into, understanding your logs and what flexibility do you have and the availability of those logs, right? If they go silent, how do you know? So focus, equally on both sides of the equation there.
Tim, I need you to one up this. Give me some worse advice on getting value from your log data. The worst advice you can think of.
I think I can do this. Tell each group in your org that they own certain logs, that they're just theirs, and then pit them against each other. And you laugh, but we see that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I love this. All right. Let us get the show started, folks.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Hello, everybody. Yes, welcome indeed to Super Cyber Friday. This is, in fact, the show where we are going to be talking about hacking the future of log data. It's going to be an hour of critical thinking about why your traditional SIM is telling only a fraction of the story. We kind of alluded to some of that stuff. I do love the idea of competitive log silos within an organization, Tim. I'm not going to lie. That's like my new VC fund. It's like my troll startup is going to be based on that. This is going to be fantastic. Of course, we have Tim Lee Healy, the VP of Corporate Strategy and Operations over at Strike 48, joining us, and Nick Falzarano, the Director of Information Security at TE Connectivity. Gentlemen, I cannot wait to get into this conversation. And I also saw that Strike 48 is sponsoring today's episode. We'll be talking a little bit more about them in just a little bit, so I cannot wait for that as well. Now, if you want to participate, there's a couple different ways. First up, our chat room. I already see some people in there. I see, let's do a little romper room over here. I see TJ Williams. I see Joshua Copeland in there. Hey, I see the CISO series is getting in there. Those are some fine folks over there. I see T. I see Peter. We see a ton of different people. Thanks so much. Get in there. Just say hi if nothing else, or get some good points. We got a thumbs up. This is wonderful. We also need some tips. Give us your 10% better tip, how to get more value from your log data. Maybe it's building off a conversation we're having. Maybe it's just your own thoughts about this. Either way, we want to hear it. Remember, you can always join us. Say, bring me on. If you have a thought about something we said, you want to say it, and it's not, the chat won't do it justice, we can always bring you on. Remember to ask questions too. We love your questions. In fact, I'm going to say we need your questions in our Q&A panel. Make sure you get in there and ask some questions, and then you can vote on those questions as well. Now, I'm not going to say this is a true democracy, but we will take some token appeasement from whatever you vote on there. And so you can feel better, if nothing else, by voting on those. Here's our schedule for today. Of course, we already did our good advice, bad advice, worse advice. We're talking about how to get more value from log data. We're going to be playing the public interest. Which password is more popular? You can win some prizes when you do it. We'll get some more details about that too. We've got some last questions. And then, of course, stick around for our meetup. You can also register for our next Super Cyber Friday coming up on March 6th, Hacking Citizen Developers. Super excited for this topic. I think top of mind for a lot of different people. And remember, we have a link at the top of our chat here to register for kind of the whole CISO series event series. We also have, if you just want to register for that event specifically, but we would love you could join us each and every week for these. So utilize links as appropriate. And like I said, you can stick around for our meetup. Good stuff, good times will be had by all after that. Get to talk a little bit more casual. All right, we need to dig in though. That was enough spiel. That was so much spiel to start off the show here. I want to start out though here, Tim. I'm curious from your perspective, from what you have seen. You are no stranger to the log data, as it were. I'm wondering, and we kind of talked about this. Nick, you kind of alluded to this, right? Like not appreciating the data, but kind of just more focusing on where to move it. Tim, I'm curious from your perspective, what percentage of log data actually gets analyzed versus, hey, let's put it on let's put it on some secondary storage somewhere, and maybe we'll think about it later.
I mean, it's company size specific, but if I have to guess a percentage, geez, in a normal corporate environment, not talking factory floor, because in factory floor it's like 0%.
Oh, God.
If you're talking about a normal, well-functioning enterprise, I don't know. I'm gonna go 10 to 15%. But I would defer. I know Nick knows his stuff. I would almost defer to Nick more on this than me. But that would be my gut, having lived the life I've lived, is 10 to 15%.
Yeah. Nick, how many neglected logs are out there?
There's a lot, so definitely appreciate understanding the logs. I'm going to expand on the question a little bit, though. I'd say ballpark, 5 to 15% is what I've seen, where you kind of store and forget. But even further, really understanding what's in each of those log messages, because when you look at it at a volume perspective, that might be a different answer. An example that I could give is, collecting Windows event logs. How much unnecessary data is in that? We've actually been able to reduce, by just parsing out stuff before we ingest it into our SIM, roughly 40 to 60% of each individual Windows log, just by pulling data out that's either redundant or unnecessary to the security value of that log.
I'm curious, how do you get started with some, like, is it identifying what in the the Windows event log is going to be the most valuable? Like what is that road to get started on that? Because I think that is a critically missed piece of, not all logs are created equal, not all collections are created equal.
So initially it was a cost and licensing that kind of forced us to take this deeper dive into analyzing our log structure and understanding how we're actually using that log. Further, understanding your different log sources and where there could be redundant data across it. If you have sign-in events coming from end devices and your EDR and, let's say, Entra ID, right? Do you really need the same log coming from 3, 4, 5 different sources? Or can you say, hey, we're just going to take it from this one and trust that? So there's a lot of optionality while you're looking to ingest some of those logs. But really, going back to the point, understanding each of your different sources and what data is contained in it is the important piece.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, kind of, Nick, kind of following you to expand on that. Tim, I'm curious from your perspective, how many organizations are actually doing that, right? As opposed to, hey, let's collect everything and step 3 value. Like it's that kind of classic. I think we've all been sold the bill of goods that data is the new oil, so collect all the things because why not? But what level of maturity kind of organizations are there that are kind of doing that?
I mean, from what we see, what I've seen in sort of my last 10, 20 years, I started following the sim space back when I was literally straight out of college, so 30 years ago. The whole evolution of logs has been driven more than anything else by compliance, as sort of like the initial sort of pushers of things, SOC compliance, whatever, regulation compliance. And that's very much a checkbox motion. So I would say within the last five years, I've started to see companies much more meaningfully embrace the business intelligence of their logs. But it's still very nascent. You don't see it outside of the larger organizations. Most people are still in a checkbox mentality, and what do I have to do and what am I told to do? And I mean, what Nick's talking about, of actually sort of parsing the log and intelligently understanding what's in the log, that's already pretty far along the sort of the maturity life cycle, if you will. But I'd say outside of the big companies, very few people are embracing the real value you can get out of it. In terms of just moving the business, it can be incredibly impactful. It's just, I mean, I know we almost all got into this way back in the day, driven by some compliance need, but that does not need to be where you stop. You can really get deep in this to really positive ends.
People in our chat are understanding the assignment. We already got some great questions in here, and T finally wants to know here, and Nick, this kind of builds off of what you're both saying here. But Nick, how do you actually get people to reduce logs, or how have you actually gotten people to reduce logs before? Like, I understand the value of doing so, right? But like in an organization, how do you start to have that conversation, right?
Yeah, I think what we've had to do is take a little bit more ownership, and instead of just publishing a standard saying, all these various application teams and whatever you guys are responsible for sending, we get much more involved. Again, trying to understand, what is this system, what types of logs is it producing, and then what sort of security value is it adding to us. And just to add on the previous question that you had asked, Tim, I think also understanding what you don't have and where your gaps are. And what's been valuable to us is both from a lessons learned perspective, looking back at, hey, if only we had this piece of data, we could have been more effective, or we could have been quicker. And then also doing proactive services. We do a lot of red teaming and purple teaming that help showcase some of that lack of visibility of logs that would have gotten us to a better answer. So I think all of that combined really helps.
Yeah, kind of not just finding the gaps, but helping to kind of tell the story there. Probably makes things a whole heck of a lot easier. We also got another question in here from Peter Gregory. How do you know if you're even getting all the log data you need? I mean, Nick, I think you kind of touched on this with about finding the gaps here, but how do you count the machine's devices not sending you log data? Inventorying the silent devices is the thing. Tim, I'll throw this to you. Any thoughts on Peter's question here?
Yeah, and I mean, and I would reference actually sort of just follow on what Nick was saying, because I know his team does a great job of interacting with their underlying business units. It's really about trying to figure out, hey, there's no log that you need or don't need per se. It's what's the business end that you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to accomplish security, you can run really advanced attack simulations and do some incredible stuff with agents at this point to try to figure out, hey, I'm only ingesting 3 logs into my SIM, but to truly provide the proper attack coverage for this new exploit, I need these other 8, whatever. But maybe you're looking more for a business enabling thing, sort of doing some analysis on who we have visiting our website to track down some marketing campaign. It's about fitting the logs to the need. And I don't think there's sort of this concept of, rogue machines not sending you critical logs so much as, what am I trying to protect myself from? What logs do I need to do that? Now, if you have a large shadow IT, at work in your org, you got bigger problems. You got to do discovery on that. But generally, when we sit down with people and we try to work with them, we start always with the business group or the business goal, and then build back from there. And that, by the way, like, helps you think about logs more broadly.
Yeah, that to me seems like it always seems weird when we did this thing, but there was no intentionality behind it. And I understand, like you were saying, if you started doing this because of a regulatory requirement, right? Like, what the intentionality was, we had to do this so that we could operate in this specific space, so we could get this, we could pass this audit or something like that. Like, I get that, but then to continue doing it and kind of not connecting that intentionality space, it seems like such a missed opportunity for so many organizations. And it's obviously hitting a chord here, because we are kind of blowing up with questions here. We are going to get to all of those, but we are just about time for our first game of the day, and that is something we like to call the public interest here. Josh, if we could bring up the Kahoot screen here. Of course, Josh is already on this right here. We're going to be playing this in Kahoot. So if you could just plug in the pin there, and then Tim and Nick, if you can, I believe you can just utilize your little sidebar there to enter in your game pin and join up there. I already see Viper in there. Again, I like doing Romper Room. I like listing people's names as I see them here. I'll be in. I cannot play since I put this game together here, but I will be in here. I probably don't remember most of the answers here. So I will just jump in here. I promise I won't win. But again, we actually have an opportunity here also to, if you win this game, to win some CISO series merch here. We will clue you in on that when we get to that, but some branded merch for your choice for winning here. So you definitely want to get in here. Oh, I'm sorry, not this game. This will be our next game. My bad. This is what happens when the big boss man David Spark is not here. This is just for honor and for fun and for me to feel good when no one goes 4 for 4 on this game. It's very rare that it happens. So I'm going to say we're going to give it 5 more seconds for everybody to get in here. We got Larry Bird in there. Fantastic. All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Let's jump in here. All you have to do here is say which search term is more popular in Google search. What do people search for more in the Google search here? So we will get underway here in just a moment here. More monthly search queries. These are just general search queries, not cybersecurity. Integrity or audit. Integrity or audit. So we try to all right. Oh, I think we're off to a wonderful start here for people going 4 for 4 here. All right. Yes. In fact, who's on the leaderboard? All right, Doc Drew and Larry Bird off to an early start here with the only people with points. Congratulations to both of you. And yes, integrity, turns out the David Spark rule of go for the shorter term did not pay off that time around here. All right, so next question here. We have 4 of these, so plenty of time to come back. No one's been eliminated here. Raw data, unstructured data, or structured data. What do you think is more popular here, folks? We gotta guess here. All right. A few more winners here. Maybe people climbing up the leaderboard here. And yes, TJ, congratulations for taking over first place. Very exciting. This was a lot closer. I was surprised by this. Shout out unstructured data, you crazy child of chaos. All right. Halfway home here, folks. Don't worry. All right. Aggregation, rotation, or collection. What are we thinking here? Again, not in a cybersecurity context. I think sometimes people get thrown off by that. All right. Collection. That seemed to be, all right, helping people out here. Here we go. And Larry Bird coming back. Doc Drew and Kaylee coming in a close second here. This is a very exciting race here. Tim and Nick, how are you guys doing so far?
I am 3.
Not good.
I have not gotten anything.
This is it. We're gonna get it. The last one, we're gonna get you on the board. I promise you. I can't give any hints because I have integrity. And you're all winners in my book. Also, that's the other thing. And most queries. So we have positive, negative, false, or true. They're in caps because I capitalized them incorrectly. They don't. Okay, there we go. Wow. True. Who is searching for true? That is I don't know, but
I'm glad people are, because I got it right.
yes, we got on the board. This is great. All right. Let's see. What do we win if we get them all wrong? You win my eternal respect for humoring me. Larry Bird, congratulations. And who's number 1 here? Oh, Doc Drew. Congratulations, Doc Drew. Fantastic. And TJ and Renan also kind of just missing the podiums. It's Olympic season after all. Doc Drew making like the U.S. women's hockey team, getting that gold. Congratulations to everybody playing. Hope you had some fun here. Now, Tim, before we get into further into our conversation here, real quick, can you help us just kind of let our audience know what is Strike 40? I know you guys are a little bit new on the block here. What are you guys doing in kind of the log data space in the sim here?
Yeah, so we really have kind of come at it from an entirely different angle. We are effectively trying to agenticize the value of log data. So we have a no-code agent builder that allows you to integrate really complex workflow capabilities to kind of expose all the value of your logs. And we're instead of saying, hey, we're going to be a SIM that just does security, or we're going to be observability platform, or we're going to be your knock tool or compliance, we're saying, hey, let's restructure this problem. Let's take advantage of everything we've got in terms of agentic and AI capabilities. And let's give people a new way to embrace and really explore and take advantage of their log data.
Very cool. Very cool. Sounds very exciting. And so, if you want to learn more about that, we have just published our poll here. You can sign up to learn a little bit more, get a handoff to someone at Strike 48, and learn a little bit more about what they are doing. You can see there, it's shared up there. So make sure, if that sounds good to you, you want to learn a little bit more. I think it sounds exciting. You can definitely check that out and make sure you get in there. And hey, there we go. We got some people signing up. That is fantastic. All right, we got a ton of questions in. Someone put a thumbs up as a question, and my answer to a thumbs up question is also a thumbs up. So thank you, thank you for that. I wanna go here. Joshua Copeland had a question here. How do you differentiate the logs you have to collect because some regulation or rule says you have to, versus high value logs that might not fall in that category? And that's kind of getting something to, kind of leaving off in our conversation there. Nick, do you have any thoughts about that kind of differentiation? Maybe what you want to invest more time in there?
Yeah. So what we do is, like I said, there's always going to be restrictions in terms of licensing and capacity. But we have a regular quarterly call where we have a backlog of logs. We have who's driving that. Is it compliance? Is it based off, like I was saying earlier, one of our internal assessments? And then we try to prioritize those across the different groups. That also helps us with our forecasting of how much data and storage do we need going forward. So really just opening up that communication across the different teams, across the different stakeholders, and allowing them to input into that process when there is a driver, whether it be compliance or security or operations or whatever it may be.
Tim, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love people to sort of stop thinking of it that question that way and start thinking, because there is so much value in the logs, not what do we have to collect versus what is high value log. To me, it's more about what are you doing with it, right? Because now with the technologies we have, you should save your logs. You the minimum dump them into an S3 bucket with an iceberg, parquet kind of setup, and at least leave them live. That doesn't cost you anything. And if you really embrace that there is value in your logs, you can really do some fantastic stuff with them. And then say, okay, but I do need my firewall logs or my whatever logs running through my SIM because I have a complex set of alerting algorithms that I'm trying to take advantage of. Or I need these logs running through my observability platform because if this Kubernetes cluster goes down, I'm host. That's kind of how we like to, it's not so much collect or not collect, it's direct them where.
Are there, Tim, I'm curious, are there any kind of use cases for logs that you've seen, whether it's from, advances in AI agents, that kind of stuff, maybe just the cost of cloud storage going down, that kind of stuff? Are there any kind of use cases that you've seen kind of emerge because just the cost of resources, right, to do that analysis have changed recently? Is there anything emerging in that direction?
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff. So I would say within the last certainly within the last decade, the fraud application in terms of investigating your logs for signs of fraud and things like that has definitely grown in terms of acceptance and importance. But now with the ability to sort of agenticize analysis and really make actionable business decisions in real time based on logs that previously were sort of meaningless, the opportunities to expand, the value you take from logs is just ballooning. And I'm talking about factory floor. I'm talking about agents themselves that are creating logs. I'm talking about, Salesforce tools or SAP or accounting logs that previously you kind of just left alone unless you were particularly exposed to something. Now there's opportunity to really take advantage of them.
Yeah, if I could just add to that real quick. I think there's a couple different buckets here. I think historically it's been, hey, let's just store the logs in case we need it in the future, right? And then slowly we're getting to a point where, okay, an LLM can process large amounts of data very quickly. So now we have that dormant data that it can process. I think also where we're trying to go in the future is, where do we have the data living natively? And do we really need to centralize it in a SIM, right? So when you're thinking about, one of our top volumes is EDR data coming into our SIM, right? If we had some sort of connector, an MCP, an agentic workflow that can query that data native in the EDR in its native format, I think there's more value in that than trying to say, okay, what can we get rid of so that we could pull in this bulk amount of data? So that's the direction that we're heading in terms of trying to analyze, what logs do we have and the volume of those logs.
We got a question here from Andrew Aiken, and I think we're hitting on a little bit of the same vein here. How does application performance management, or APM, impact what you save from your logs? Any thoughts on that from either of you?
I mean, I guess I don't necessarily know the essence of the question. If he's saying that directing logs is affecting the performance of his applications, that I haven't seen. If he's basically saying, hey, how do I use my underlying logs to monitor the performance? Then there's just no end of value and potential out of the logs. Even for, like, now you have such complex interconnected systems, and sort of like, just imagine you're sort of at the end of a factory floor making widgets, right? And all of a sudden the widgets stop coming off, right? But it could be a lug nut, 3 miles back in the assembly line, and you don't know. There's a digital equivalent of that. And so having your hands on all the logs allows you to find the lug nut immediately and start the whole factory and get the widgets coming out again.
Nick, I'm curious, based on what you were saying just a little bit ago about kind of analyzing the log data kind of more at the at the point of collection, or not necessarily ingesting that into the SIM. Is there any concern about I guess a lack of, I don't want to say a lack of centralized visibility, because of course you could aggregate that and send that to somewhere else and stuff like that. But when you're trialing that, right, was there any concern, I guess, looking into that? And then what did you kind of find from there?
Yeah, I think, this has always existed, right? There's APIs, you can query the data, but this just makes it much more efficient to be able to do it in that native platform. I think also one of the things, like I was mentioning before, is that redundancy in data. So you have all of these different systems, they're collecting, sometimes similar logs. Being able to connect to all these different places, one, reduces that centralized overload of storing the log centrally, but then also being able to see within each individual system how those logs are, or let's just say sign-in logs again, how is that used within each of these different applications, where it may be one event coming into the SIM, but then, okay, this user signed in, what location, what are they accessing? All of that's kind of native in that platform. So getting a deeper visibility into what that log actually means within the native platform versus it being more abstract once it's in a centralized location.
Yeah, and if I could riff a little bit off of what Nick was saying is, it's not necessarily even about ultimately centralizing them or not centralizing them. It's about whether you sort of funnel them through a SIM or observability platform first. Because listen, if there's real-time alerting value or something like that, then okay, we all get funnel it through whatever that tool is. But if they're more investigative in nature, you've had your alert go off and now you want to look in the EDR to see, did the node get popped? Didn't it? What's the extent of the compromise? Then it makes all the sense in the world to leverage the MCP. You still maybe sometime down the road are offloading this stuff to an S3 bucket, but why pass it through a really, really expensive intermediary?
I'm one thing that has been in the back of my mind since we started this conversation, and Tim, you put it there, so I'm going to go down this. We joked about having competitive log silos, right? But we know that none of this is operating in a vacuum, right? These are all business. These logs are all being collected by business units that all are operated by humans with egos, fallible, whatever. Is there any issue here? Have you found any issue, I guess, with navigating the corporate culture of this, right? Of being like, well, quiet cybersecurity guys, you go to your corner, look at your SIM, be happy with that. We got our stuff over here. We're IT, I'm not even reporting to your CISO. What are you bothering me for? Is that any kind of issue that you've come across, Nick? I'm curious from your perspective. Has there been any kind of corporate culture pushback on this?
I could definitely see where you're coming from. I think our security team has a very strong partnership with a lot of our infrastructure teams. So when we come to them with an ask, there's much more of an open door there and discussion, and we could even kind of flip it back on them and say, hey, once we have these connections set up, here's the value you could get out of it, right?
Yeah,
there's some restrictions there of making sure that we don't overexpose too much data. But they see the value in terms of when we come to them and say, hey, can we connect this up and try to show them what the outcomes look like, going back to what Tim said, right? Focusing on that outcome driven scenario rather than just logs have to come in.
Yeah. Tim, does that make it the easier play, right? Like, here's what I can give you if like I can solve problems instead of, security coming in and saying no all the time.
Listen, Nick's perspective here is colored by his competence. He can't see what the rest of the world lives. I didn't make up that joke. I was just relaying the thousands of experiences I've had. They do it incredibly well, but I have routinely run into CISOs where you're talking about, hey, you can do all this and this would benefit your NOC. And I've been told, I don't care what benefits the NOC. I have the CISO budget. That's all I care about. You want to start a new conversation with the NOC, go do that till your heart's content. And so, I've always been impressed by how Nick's org has sort of rolled within their org, but it's not the norm in my opinion. I do find that people get more cooperative as I go down the company size. Like in the Fortune Global 2000, they can be really, really rigid. By the time I'm in the mid-market, everybody's just trying to survive. But
you can keep my head above water for another day, please.
Yeah, it's like, cool. Like, yeah, that's great. You can solve one of my problems. That sounds awesome. But yeah, I see a lot of territorialism in the market still, for sure.
Yeah, well, and that's, I mean, I wish I could say I'm surprised to hear that, but that doesn't surprise me in terms of that kind of level of, I don't care. It's not my problem. It's not my job. That has to be, I imagine, extraordinarily frustrating for all involved when you get that kind of level of response.
Well, I'll tell you, even from a sort of, I'm on the vendor side, obviously, and from a go-to-market perspective, it like informs so much. You're like, okay, we could do a lot. Should we aim at the CISO level? Should you aim at the CISO level? Should you be talking to managers? Because you're almost like, well, if I have the strongest message for the CISO, but I can add value in the NOC, it's kind of either or, which is just a weird dynamic, but it's the world we live in. So we roll with it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in showing people, building it kind of bottom up, because you get them engaged and excited about what you could do to make their life easier, and then just have them roll it up the chain from there.
Yeah. Let them do kind of the sales job, or like the internal buy-in. Yeah, for you. That's a really great point, Nick. Thanks for that. Before we move on to our next question, because we got a ton of questions here, I promise we're going to get to as many as we can, but keep them coming. We love seeing those questions. And let us know, do you have you don't have to name any names here, but I want to hear all the tea with people telling you that ain't my job in the chat. Please let us know. But also remember, you can register for our entire Super Cyber Friday event series. We have the link to that pinned to the top of our chat. And also, remember, check out that poll if you want to hear more about what Strike 48 is doing. Please, they would love to talk to you. I'm assuming you would like to talk to them. Please, looks like we got some good feedback there. Keep it coming if you are in fact interested. I want to go to this question here from Kartik Gupta, and this kind of shifts the conversation I think a little bit here. But his question was, "What's your take on non-human identities sprawled in logs?" Tim, I see a head shake there. Do we have thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, this is like this is becoming a real topic. I mean, like real, because once you get into these tools, obviously I love ours, but I'm sure it's true of any other tool. You just start to chunk out agents. You're like, oh, I can solve this problem. Oh, I can solve this problem. Oh, I can solve this problem. And then the question comes, it's like the Tesla driver issue. If the autopilot runs over somebody, who's responsible,
Ah,
right? So then we start to get into the conversations of, should you attach the identity to the user that created the agent, to the user that's interacting with the agent? Should the agent have its own identity? That is the direction we have gone. But uh, and then frankly, if you start building really complex workflows, we get into this idea of a micro agent where you basically split the agent up into thousands sort of small individual agents. I mean, I don't know where it goes. I don't know. I don't know where the, what the light at the shine end of the tunnel is going to be. But this is it's a lot of open questions here.
when I hear micro agents, I just think of like nanite gray goo, like in salt, like
It's
just
sort of like that.
just like no. That's fascinating, though. Oh my gosh, that like this is yes, this is why I love this show.
Well,
Nick, where are you at with this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about on non-human identities. How do you secure them? How do you maintain agents over time as the human who built them leaves the company, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the discussion, at least within our team, as we're working with Tim and building some of these agents, um, what's the scope of these agents? Do we treat them as part of our team? And then taking that steps further, like, do you give them a name in your employee directory? If these agents are taking actions on your behalf, how does that look to an end user in your company? And then, at what point, do you start comparing salary of here's how much an agent costs versus a human? Like, there's a lot of these discussions that you need to be thinking of. So yeah, it's I don't have a lot of the answers yet, but we're starting to think about some of that.
It's good to know where the conversation is going in that regard, like agent lifecycle management. I never even thought like the answering who's responsible is a hard question, let alone what happens when Roy, who created that agent and was responsible, is now gone, and he just left a binder on his desk, right? Like that's oh my gosh. All right, it's if I don't have a mild degree of dread, I don't think we've done our job here. So
Yeah,
I
if you
think
don't think you have tech debt now, wait a couple of years.
yeah, it's I mean I've said that like the whole AI boom is just let's build tech debt at scale, right? So
that's a fair point.
it's a good stuff. All right, we have another question here from Ty. Finally, here, and this kind of gets into some of maybe the I don't know, some of the industry workings when it comes to logs. But how do you deal with vendors who hide some logs behind paywall or licensing? And Ty is nice enough to name some people there that they feel is an offender there. I'm curious. Is well, Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to being outcome driven and knowing what those processes are. We haven't had a lot in this space where data is protected, or when we're trying to forward it, we don't get that sort of visibility. We try to again go back to, okay, is there another way that we could get this? Is there another source? Not everything is always drop an agent on a host, but sometimes you need to do that. So really, again, looking at the ecosystem, looking at the problem that you're trying to solve, and then figuring out what bits and pieces from each data source you can get to aggregate up to solve the challenge that you're trying to face.
You know where we see this a lot, though, is if when you get into the sort of the smaller mid market, and they don't have the relationship with their software providers or their vendors
Mm,
to to get the logs, and they can actually be blocked out of critical logs. And then you can only do what Nick is suggesting there, which is go back to the end business problem you're trying to solve and see how to piece it together. But I was involved in a webinar a couple of days ago where we were talking about logs. We were having a similar conversation to this, and the person's like, "Yeah, but I can't get any of the logs." And they were talking about, Google email and, small size e-commerce companies. And then again, you have to sit down, you have to start first with the business problem you're trying to solve and do your best to work back.
Yeah, we've had to build some custom things as well. Instead of waiting for a push or a syslog feed or something like that, there's been times where we've had to come build creative solutions with custom scripts and integrations with APIs to get to the data that we need that's not being sent over through a log message.
But that all comes back to kind of working from a purpose, right? Of that business need, and then building that out. Again, the intentionality piece to me is amazing. How often that gets lost in the shuffle of I'm doing job thing got saved to somewhere. I did my job, but like kind of connecting those two things to me, it really is the opportunity, right? Of all of these agents and stuff like that, right? Like makes it so much easier to get to either that business value, get that business intelligence. Nick, from your perspective, like how much has that kind of the cost to business intelligence shifted as we've been able to kind of integrate agents into these log analysis? I mean, like you said, a lot of these tools aren't new, right? We could build API pipelines and stuff like that, but has the cost to business insight significantly changed in your perspective?
Not yet. I would say that we're still trying to figure out first from a security perspective, how we're going to leverage these agentic solutions, and then kind of build it out from there of here's other business value, business drivers that can play into what we've already built. So I'd say right now we're still just a very security focused.
Yeah. So the analogy I always use is it's the Fred Flintstone car, right? In my opinion, what we're seeing is the legs start to spin really fast, but the car's still stationary. But you really got to, every corporation's got to start spinning their legs real fast, because once it hits, that car takes off. And I think that's going to be the analogy that we'll see play out. People are trying to figure out, okay, not only what these agents can do, what am I comfortable having them do, and how do I fit them into my human process? But once you kind of get that, we actually hit bumps internally trying to do it ourselves. But once it sort of clicked, once it worked out, it was just so much far better than what we previously had that then the car zips off. So
I'm going to quote the pterodactyl dishwasher. It's a living. It's one of the greatest lines in Simpsons history. More Simpsons references worked into cybersecurity would be my preferred way of living. We're going to move on. Before we get on some more questions, finish up the conversation here today. Really having a ton of fun. We got to get to our second game. Now, reminder, this is the game where you can, in fact, win some CISO Series swag. You are playing for pride, but also for real prizes. It's really fantastic. We got a lot of cool items in there. We got hoodies, we got water bottles, we got things to cover, all manner of things, store things even. It's fantastic. So you're going to want to get involved here. And this is another one that I put together. I'm very happy with this one. It's called Which Password is More Popular? And guess what? You have to guess which password is in fact more popular. Josh, let's load up the Kahoot game here, and we'll get everybody in there. As I've said before, I will join, but I will not be playing. So please make sure you are in there. It'll be a ton of fun. I see Ty in there, Viper. Oh man, we got everybody getting in there. Josh, Doc, Drew. Also, while we're playing this game, or if you have any questions you want us to get to before the end of the show, make sure you get them in either right now, right after we're done playing with this. If you get the first two wrong and you just want to crash out and don't want to play anymore, I accept that. So please feel free to ask some questions in that interim. We'll get in there. Oh, we got an emoji in there. Always fun. We'll give it 5 more seconds and then we will jump in. Actually, I'm not in there yet. Hold on.
So Rick, while we're waiting, let me give you one tiny piece of fun trivia related to this. The very first virus was a Unix script that just tried 60 female names to try to crack into the Unix server. That was the very first one, and it made incredible progress. It just blew up the internet back in the day.
The ultimate, the first like just brute force with a list of names. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. Well, hopefully none of these names will be passwords that people can use. Although I do see some Matt, I do see some odd figures in yours, so those would be good for passwords. All right, Josh, I think we're just about ready. We will jump in. Your mom's mom is in here, so I'm really happy to see her in there. Hope her retirement's going well. So that sounds really good. All right, here we go. Always a ton of fun. We got passwords. You got to tell me which ones are more popular. Spelling does count here. This, you may see some, or capitalization, excuse me. Capitalization counts here. And these are all pulled from an aggregated data set of have I been pwned to put all these together. So putting data sets to good work. All right, let's see here. Yes, password or password one. Tough call. We got capitalizations. We got numbers. It's a tough one. Oh, we got just about a 50-50 split there. Good old capital P password, proven to be popular there. Did either of you get that right, Tim or Nick?
I did not.
No.
Man. Oh, man.
It's not my fault because I've used password one before and I've not used capital P password.
I mean, who has it on a local Linux machine? Come on. Come on. No one's going to see that Raspberry Pi. It's mostly just to keep my kids out. That was the 276th most popular password in the data set. So turns out depressing all the way around. Our next one here, we'll move on here. This is the question that bedevils people's minds. Account or username? I just love thinking of the mentality of both these. Account or username? What do we got? Oh, accounts more popular. People didn't know. I guess username's a little too technical. Maybe. I don't know. Let's see who's in first now. Oh, Kardik overtook Larry Bird. And then we got Matt with the googly emoji eyes right after that. So top three shaping up. Kardik off to a big lead there, though. And a wide margin for account here. All right, next up here. Got another password here. All right. Hacked, hacker, or hack. What are we thinking here? Oh, all right. Nice job, everybody. Nick and Tim, were you among the 14
I got that one.
I got it wrong. I don't know how you guys are so good at this thing.
All right. Trav coming up out of nowhere, taking up the top spot. Dr. Larry Bird, Viper, and Kaylee, though. It's very close. It's anybody's game. It's all about reaction time at this point. So very excited here. Hacker, yes. Very popular. Very popular. I love digging into the data sets on these and just seeing what pops up here. New password, no password, my password, all of these one word. What do you got here, folks? What are we thinking here? All right. We got some winners here. Tim, are we on the board at all?
I got on the board. I got this one.
Okay. All right. Well, yes. All right. Now we're cooking with gas here. Doc Drew coming in with it's a tie at the top. Doc Drew and Trav fighting for that merch. So we will see who, in fact, will get the merch here. Hey, Freddie was our highest climber that round. So good job, Freddie, coming on up there. Very nice. Very nice. All right. I think we got one more to go. Round 5. More popular passwords. Security, admin, cyber, or access. Security, admin, cyber, or access. They get harder as you go, folks. Oh, no, we got blanked. I'm so sorry. Admin, I was rooting for admin, too. I do apologize for that. Access, the 93rd most popular password. More popular than password or password one. Who would have thought? People, they're fickle. Who's on the podium, though? I got to know. Viper coming in number 3. Nice job, Viper. You were doing well in the last game, too, I believe. Trav, a late run, not quite enough to get to... Oh, no, it's a tie. It's a tie at the top. Doc Drew and Trav tied with 3 out of 5, and your mom's mom and Steve. Well done, everybody. I'm proud of everybody. Great job. And I believe Josh will be in touch for the winners there. Very nice. Very nice. We got let me just see here. Here we got one more question. All right. We have a question here for another one from Ty Finely here. How do you navigate business through the layers of detail in logs, like collecting all NTFS logs would bring any server to its knees? And there are IT products which focus directly on issues like this, and they could cost significant money. Nick or Tim, any thoughts on that?
I mean, again, so it's from my perspective, it's purpose driven, right? So how do you navigate the business through the layers of details and logs? The business doesn't want to know about the layers of details and logs, right? The business is just trying to accomplish business, right? So, and the question is, to me, this is really a budget question, right? So you go back to the business and say, hey, if you're asking me to boil the ocean, and as this person's suggesting, collect all NTSF logs, right? It's X. If you're trying to accomplish objective B, I could probably do that for a fraction of X. Do you know what I mean? And then again, it sort of plays out exactly what we were talking with the search in place stuff, right? If you're going to collect all EDR logs, that's probably a real pain in the butt. And can we explore better ways to do it? Because they're investigatively relevant, but maybe not alerting relevant.
I like it. I like it. We got about 10 minutes left in the show here, but make sure you stick around for our meetup right after the show. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to navigate away to another place. We're going to have them right here in Airmeet. We'll have some breakout rooms opening up right after the show is over, so make sure you stick around for that. Make sure also, if you want to learn more from Strike 48, maybe you can talk to Tim or someone Tim knows. You can sign up in our poll and learn a little bit more. And remember to register again for all of our future episodes. We have the link right up on top there. You can get involved with the whole CISO series, Super Cyber Friday event series. It's a lot of fun. We enjoy putting these together, and it's just a ton of fun. Before we have to get out of here, Nick, I'm curious, what's one thing kind of in this topic of kind of finding this new data in logs? What's one thing we have, like an area we haven't talked about yet that we need to bring up?
So I'm going to give two separate answers. Okay. I think one is understanding how fast things change, especially now. If you want to look back, just AI centric, right? It wasn't too long ago that ChatGPT came out and impressed everyone, and even back then, the standards that they had compared to what it can do now is much different, right? And then think about that timeline that we've all faced. Everything from the models leapfrogging each other to DeepSeek to MCP being established. That was only like a little over a year ago. To now OpenClaw, right?
Yeah, I was just saying.
It's a lot to keep up with, and your strategy may change over time as there's these advancements. But I think ultimately you need to start somewhere. You need to figure out, OpenClaw is a good example, right? Build versus buy. It's a traditional 20-year-old problem plus in IT. How are you going to solve these challenges of the future? Do you pick a platform like a Strike 48, or do you start, baby steps of building your own? I think there's a lot of value in trying to figure out where you're going with that direction. And then also the second piece is understanding how you want to store those logs also, right? Is it still a very SIM centric, or, for the past couple of years, we've been looking at, are there other more cost-effective ways of storing data in a data lake, putting some sort of visibility tool on top of that. But now, there's more options available to us. Like we were mentioning earlier, querying data in the native systems, how does that play into your strategy? So I think just taking a step back and trying to predict where the industry is going and standardizing on some tools, and then just start building, start iterating on it, is really the best advice that I could give.
Tim, what about you? Is there anything we haven't touched on that this conversation would be incomplete without?
No, but I gotta riff off what Nick was saying because I just think that is like spot on exactly right. Just start the journey, guys, right? You don't even have to get it right. Just start because it is so incredibly fast. Things are moving so rapidly. I mean, there are no pearls of wisdom that can be given other than, find your own pearls of wisdom, fit it into your environment because like I said, so we started on this journey as a vendor. You have to be forward leaning, you have to be willing to take the bumps, right? And we built agentic technologies to improve our operational efficiency. But even slamming those into production was no simple trick. Do you know what I mean? So you have to, people are always going to feel some kind of way about this idea of agents coming in and sort of taking jobs and stuff like that. And so there's a whole evolution that has to go on here. So I would really encourage people to go do exactly what Nick just said. Both pieces of advice are spot on. Start the journey now, and then look at how it can revolutionize what you're doing. Because even just the suggestion, just the conceptualization of maybe the sim isn't where everything needs to be. Do you know what I mean? Maybe an S bucket with a new agentic world or a search in place in an agentic world is may even get me to a better spot. So
I
there's
think
just a
one of the
lot.
one of the things that Tim mentioned there is really important as well, of the humans involved in this and addressing some of their concerns that these agentic workflows are going to take over. If you look back, I listed a whole kind of history over the past 3 years, but there was a time when people thought prompt engineer was going to be a full-time job, and think about where we've gone since then. I'm pushing my team to explore, okay, think about how you could be an agent builder. Think about how you can build these tools, and not necessarily to replace jobs, but it's a different skill set that people need to learn. So we've been looking into that as well.
And yeah, I love the kind of the shift in mindset these tools kind of force you to do just across all spectrums of like what is possible with this, and not in terms of like do exactly what I'm doing right now but do it automatically is usually the worst way. It's usually like, what's something that was not worth anyone's time to do but would be extraordinarily or like I couldn't justify, not that it's not worth anybody's time, but you can't justify the time, but oh wait, you're a magical computer thing, go do that. It's an extraordinarily powerful kind of mindset shift that you can kind of embrace. I enjoy hearing that we're all kind of dealing with that across industries here. This is fantastic. It's also fantastic that we were able to have Strike 48 sponsor today's Super Cyber Friday. Tim, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate that. Remember also to join us this Monday coming up. I'm going to be talking with Montez Fitzpatrick and Peter Gregory on our Department of No show. That's on our YouTube channel. If you've never joined us for one of these, it is absolutely spectacular. We have two security leaders that are on. We dig into the news of the week. We tell you why it matters to your team. It's a fun time, and I hope each and every one of you can join us there, get involved in our chat, ask them some questions, and have some fun. Remember to stick around for our meetup right after this in about 2 minutes here. We will be getting into that. And if you want to sponsor the show, info@cisoseries.com is how you start your journey of edification. So I'm going to end up here. We have one last question from Kartik, and we got 2 minutes here, so why don't we try and tackle this here? Do you prefer enabling logs on all third-party services getting used, or get on the firewall level to avoid high cost but low fidelity? Nick, I'm gonna throw this one to you here. What are we thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the purpose of those third-party services, right? What value are they adding? Get out of the mindset of just collecting logs to collect logs, or that's what policy is, and understand, the data contained in those logs and how you're going to use them. I think there's a lot of options when you look at network visibility in terms of how can you look back in terms of who's talking to who on your network, right? You can go a NetFlow route. You could look at firewall logs. You can do a very wide array of things to get to the same outcome. One of the things that we've found value at is EDR logs showing network connection statements between different hosts on our network, and being able to get visibility that way rather than import a whole bunch of flow data or other things like that into our SIM. So there's a lot of optionality, I would say, and figure out what works best for you.
All right. Well, I think we will get out on that question. Nick Falzerano, thank you so much for your time, for your expertise, helping us break down not just answering the questions, but like, what do those questions maybe reveal about our organization? I think in this topic specifically, there's so much shifting around intentionality in terms of like what we want out of these that your perspective, absolutely invaluable. And Tim Lee Healy, VP of Corporate Strategy and Operations at Strike 48. Thank you for lending, for your expertise, for helping us break everything down, getting answers to all of these questions. Truly, truly appreciated. Remember to stick around for that meetup, though. It's going to be starting in just a couple of seconds here. We're going to have Josh take us out here, and then you can be yakking with us. It's going to be a fun time. I hope you can join us. So, Josh, why don't you go ahead and take us out, and we'll get